How can you be more persevering? If something is important for you, how can you persevere further, longer, and go through all these obstacles in order to reach your goals, your objectives, and what's important for you? When I read Grit by Angela Duckworth, I was struck by the two core pillars of grit and perseverance, which are passion and perseverance. So this idea of you need to be passionate and have high interest in what you're doing, but also have that ability to be able to persevere. I recorded a previous episode on the concept of grit, and here I want to explore more in depth how you can build perseverance. And I've broken it down into 3 core ingredients. I've noticed that it really takes the 3 core ingredients in order to persevere. The very first ingredient is mindset. And by mindset, I mean believing that you have what it takes, believing that your goal and your ambition is worthwhile, and also believing that the actions that you're taking will lead you there. If you don't believe that the journey that you're on, that the path that you're taking will eventually lead you to the goal, why would you stick around and do it? So if we take a concrete example, let's say you want to publish a book. Let's say that's been a dream your whole life. You would then need to believe that you're the sort of person that can write a book. Then you would need to believe that that goal is worth pursuing, and it's worth it, but worth it sufficiently hard that in the really challenging moments, it's still worthwhile. And you would need to believe that the journey, what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis, maybe your strategy, the different actions that you're taking, will lead you to having that book published. Now, I know that in my case, when I look at, for example, publishing a novel, I can see the journey, writing regularly, but then when I look at finding a publisher and all these sort of things, I start to feel that that's less possible, or it becomes too challenging or too difficult. And then I typically persevere less. So for instance, last year, I wrote a novel and I didn't publish it, but I didn't set the goal of publishing a novel. I set the goal of writing a novel because I knew that the publishing aspect wasn't something that I was at least interested in investing my time and energy and effort into for now. And so therefore the goal was to write the novel. I pursued the goal, I edited the novel, I finished it, and then I thought, at some point, the right moment, I'll invest time in publishing it. But that's what you need to decide ahead of time. What's the goal? What's the direction you're going into? Why does it matter? So in the case of me writing this novel, why did it matter? I just fancied writing this story. I love writing fiction. It was fun. That was why I wanted to do it. And that was sufficient motivation for me to actually push through and write it. Now, when it came to writing my non-fiction book, The Magic of Focus, then I had a clear goal and then I got it published, and that felt like a worthwhile activity for me and also in the business. So when you're looking at your goal and your ambition, you need to think, why are you doing it? Why does it matter? And what are the actions that you're taking? What path are you on? And do you believe it'll take you there? So if you're looking at being fitter, for instance, and you're on a journey where maybe you're doing yoga a few days a week and you think that helps, but maybe you don't think it will lead you to the ultimate goal that you have or the vision you have in terms of maybe your cardio strengths and these sort of things, then you start to question the path and the actions that you're taking. So then it might be a matter of changing that so that it aligns with your goals, right? So you see you have these 3 core goals and beliefs and mindset here, which are believing in yourself, believing that you have what it takes, believing that your goal is worthwhile, worth pursuing, you have a strong why behind it, and believing that the path will take you to that destination. And this is a concept that I got from Giovanni Dienstmann, who wrote the book Mindful Self-Discipline. Highly recommend that book. We collaborated a bit on certain projects, and I really, really love this idea of these 3 core beliefs. Because if you don't have one of them, that's it. The perseverance is already broken. You won't persevere if you don't really believe you have what it takes. You won't persevere if you don't really think the goal is worth pursuing, and you won't really persevere if you're on that path and journey. I don't think it'll take you there. To be honest, this is the one I've struggled most with, the path. Because sometimes I've thought, okay, I think I have what it takes. I really do believe the goal is worth pursuing. But will these actions actually take me there? I don't know. So then we need to experiment. We need to try and then innovate and then change again and maybe consult with our mentors and then read books and then try again and try different things. It depends what the goal is. For certain goals, like actually writing a book, you just write regularly every day. The path is pretty straightforward, but growing your business, that's a different story, right? The path can fluctuate quite a bit. So in this mindset of also believing in yourself, there's often a lot of inner work that needs to be done. There's often a lot of hidden self-beliefs that we have around our capabilities, what's possible for us, what we even deserve, if we're worth it. And all of these beliefs around ourselves will directly impact our perseverance, will directly impact our ability to follow through with the actions that we tell ourselves we're going to do. Because that's what perseverance is, right? It's the ability to continue and to take action in a direction that we've told ourselves we're going to do. So it's the ability to stick to our own words and to take the next action and the next, in spite of obstacles, in spite of things getting in the way and maybe hindering our progress along the journey. Now, if the second you reach the first obstacle, you think, that's it, clearly it wasn't meant to work, or I'm not good at this, or I'll never manage this, then obviously you're not persevering. The most successful people that I know, that I've interviewed or met or listened to, what they all have in common is relentless perseverance. More than IQ, more than creative, more than well-connected, they all have this relentless perseverance. And for some people, it's come from a resilience they've built up going through challenging times in their life. I'm thinking of Tony Robbins, for instance, went through very hard times and he built up this really strong resilience, but also he nurtured it afterwards when he went through dark times and heavy moments. He nurtured this perseverance. But other people, they just build on it. They learn, they fall, they try again. The truth is, only you know what will help you to persevere. Either based on previous successes, what has helped you to persevere in the past when you thought that you wouldn't make it, when you tried and you tried and you failed and you failed and you fell on your feet and you were upset and you were hurt and you were discouraged and you were unmotivated, and yet you still did it. What helped you then? Because whatever helped you then could probably help you now. Whatever helped you in challenging times in the past to actually get to your goal or to take action or to pick yourself up can help you now. Now, for some people, it's literally the core why behind the goal. Some people, the core why is to support their family or to be a role model of what's possible or to rise to the challenge and show that they can do it. That maybe isn't the best of whys, but it doesn't matter. Whatever it takes that you have that supports you to go in that direction, whatever the core why is, you need this burning desire behind it. The why needs to be very strong. So that can support you. For others, it's just passion or interest or curiosity. If I did manage, then what would happen? If I could do that, it doesn't really matter. What matters is you've managed in the past. And therefore you can manage in the future. Because perseverance is a muscle you built. If you're able to use it once, you can build it again. But generally as we get older, we become a bit weaker in our minds. Unless we train it, we become a little more complacent, a little more comfortable, a little more afraid of what other people will think or say or do, a little less willing to be curious or experiment or try something new or step outside our comfort zone. It becomes harder. That's why it's easier as kids. You play, you fall, hurt yourself, you try again. And then you get older, you become more sort of closed. You're more afraid and less vulnerable and things become more challenging. That's why we need to train the perseverance muscle, to train our brain that when you fall, you learn, you get up again, you fall, you get up, Doesn't matter how many times you fall as long as you rise, right? And this doesn't mean, and this is super important, it doesn't mean that you need to be totally obstinate about a goal if it no longer makes sense for you. So for instance, if you set the goal to do a marathon, and you persevere, and then you get really badly injured and you can't run. And then the next year you train again, you persevere, and then you're still badly injured and you can't run. It's okay to shift the goal sometimes. You might still want to keep the marathon. You might want to wait till you recover, etc. But you might want to shift it to a different thing that's maybe more aligned or makes more sense with your health. I mean, sometimes things happen in life and we actually can't persevere For instance, if we're thinking during the pandemic years, if one of your main goals was to go and speak in front of 10,000 people at a live audience, that wouldn't have been possible for a few years, right? Afterwards, yes, but for a few years, it was actually physically not possible. So sometimes we need to redirect certain goals or shift them or adapt or innovate. And sometimes we don't want these things anymore, and that's okay, right? If you always had this ambition to write a book and then you realize you actually don't really want to write a book, that's cool, right? Perseverance isn't about forcing yourself forever down this road because one day you decided. No, we change. But, and I heard this from Brooke Castillo on the Life Coach School podcast, and they made a huge impact on me. She said, never, ever give up because you've stopped believing in yourself. And that gave me goosebumps and chills, and I thought she's right. You give up if it's not aligned. You give up if you just don't want to do it anymore. You give up if the whole world has changed and everything's online and you can't speak in front of 10,000 people. Then you shift, maybe more than give up. But you don't give up because you don't believe it's possible, because that you can change. You can change your self-belief. You can change how you view yourself. You can change the beliefs you have around yourself and your own capabilities and what's possible for you. Those are all within your control. And if it's something you still feel is aligned and you still want to do and it's still important for you, then why give up? Right? So important. So that's the first ingredient. I said there were 3 core ingredients when it comes to perseverance. And the first one is around mindset, broken down into these 3 buckets of believing in the self, goal, and the journey. The second ingredient is patience. And boy, have I struggled with this second ingredient. It has been my nemesis. Patience, 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 to the extent where I went to a silent meditation retreat. There were yoga mats on the floor, and next to each yoga mat there was one word, and people had different words: determination, silence, respect, joy, happiness, peace. I go straight to yoga mat, sit down, and mine was written patience. This is incredibly challenging, because the truth is, if you're a high achiever, which I know you are because all the people listening and watching to this content are all high achievers, if you're a high achiever, you're by nature somewhat impatient to see results. There's this tendency to start something and want to see an immediate impact and result. This can be a strength because it makes you take action faster and sooner, but it can also be a weakness because it also can make you give up sooner. And I've experienced this many times, because you're so ambitious and so driven and so fast, but then you don't see the results fast enough. So what do? You quit. Sometimes you continue, but not always. Because the patience is so painful. To try and try and try and do and do and do and not see any results or any impact of your actions can be quite a challenge to many of us. I definitely have experienced this. So the second ingredient of patience is allowing yourself a time frame during which you persevere, and then you measure progress and results. Now, to support you on the patience journey, because I know how hard it is, so a few things can help, a few tools can help. One of the tools I used was my wins channel on WhatsApp. So I log all of the wins that happen in the direction of my goal. So often in my case, it's business wins related. But if, for instance, you're tracking health, or if you're tracking improvement in relationships, you want to track every win that shows that it's going forward and it's moving and it's progressing and you're making progress. Because if you're naturally impatient, you'll start to think that you're not seeing any results or any impact. So if you track progress, it'll make you feel as if you're progressing a bit further, a bit faster, and it will help you to be more patient. That's one thing. Another one is to write down the different actions that you want to take, like a habit log, if you wish, or whatever it is that you do to keep track of the actions you're taking, because then even if you're not seeing the outcome and the result, you're seeing the output. You think, I'm doing this. So for instance, in my business, it could be writing down a bunch of actions, bold actions, I generally call them, that I know can take me to the next level in business. Whether it's inviting an amazing person on the podcast, or reaching out to a startup incubator for collaboration, or reaching out to someone to co-build a project together. All of these bold actions, I track them. And then even if you don't see the outcome immediately, because people don't answer immediately, some things take a while. Some of the best guests that I've had on the podcast I absolutely love took me a year or two to get them on the podcast. So you don't always see the outcome, but then you have a list of all the outputs and the things you're actually doing. So if, for instance, you're looking at being fitter, you might want to track all of your workouts to prove to yourself, hey, I'm making action, I'm progressing, even if you're not immediately seeing the results in terms of your health or how fit you feel, because you can at least see the track. So these things can really, really help with patience. It doesn't change the fact that good things take time. You can't become a millionaire overnight. I know some people say they have. You can't suddenly go from super unhealthy to hyper fit from one day to the next. You can't go from a really unhappy relationship to a very happy relationship. Maybe overnight you could get there actually, but within, a week or two to rebuild the foundations at least. Generally more like several months to really rebuild those foundations. It doesn't have to take forever, but things take a while if you really want to see progress and impact. And therefore, we need to learn this ability to be more patient. So we need to be impatient with our actions, but patient with the results and the outcomes. And learn that it's okay. And the fact that it takes time is testing your perseverance. It's testing your ability to stick through. It's testing how much it actually means to you, how much it actually matters. That's what it's doing. So patience is a good test. It's a test to see if it's really worth it for you. And if it's not, hey, that's fine. Quit, do something else. There's nothing wrong with quitting. Quitting in itself isn't bad at all. What matters is if you quit something that really you didn't want to quit. But you quit because you don't believe in yourself anymore, or you don't have the patience anymore, or you don't think you have the ability. Then it only matters because it'll make you less happy, less fulfilled, and you'll feel less aligned in your life, and you'll have regret, and no one wants to lead a life of regret, right? That's why it matters. But if you actually realize it's something you don't want to do at all, and it's taking forever, and why even bother, then maybe that patience test is a good way of saying, hey, you know what? I'm actually not that interested. That actually doesn't really matter to me that much. Quit. I stopped a lot of my social media channels. Now I mostly use just LinkedIn. But I stopped, Twitter and Instagram. And you could say like, oh, I was just impatient to build the following or whatnot. But I also just realized I wasn't that interested and it didn't actually matter to me that much. That's fine, right? It's not a problem. I don't have bitter regret that I don't use Twitter, I don't wake up in the morning feeling sad about it. That's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for when we're feeling aligned, when it matters to us, and that ability to persevere on it. Okay, so where we're at, we looked at the first ingredient, which was mindset. The second one, which was patience. And the third one is courage. Courage to take bold actions. Courage to still show up each time you fall. Courage to follow through. Courage to listen to yourself and listen to what really matters. Courage to continue believing. The courage to show up is probably the number one way in which you become more persevering, because you're courageous enough to show up. You take the action, whether it's going to that workout, whether it's having a team meeting and boosting the team performance of your team, whether it's having that challenging conversation or showing up at that investor meeting, or whatever it is that showing up means for you. Showing up and writing the words if you're writing a novel, or showing up and trying a new recipe if you're looking at improving your cooking and persevering with cooking. It doesn't matter what you set as a goal and a direction and something you want to persevere with. Are you being courageous enough? Are you stepping up in spite of fear, in spite of discomfort, in spite of uncertainty, and taking those daily bold actions? Courage, 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 courage. I think I even put courage above patience, in the sense that the courage to be patient, right? So if you develop courage as a strong skill, it's also a muscle, as a way of thinking, as a way of being, as a way of acting, then when you start to feel impatient, you think, give me the courage to be patient. And when I say give me, I obviously mean channeling it. I obviously mean looking within it and finding that courage. All that the courage ever is being able to take that action or not take that action in spite of the fear you're feeling. So you notice the fear, and then you tune in with yourself what feels the most aligned, and then you take the aligned action over the fear. At any given moment, or definitely during the course of the day or course of a week, we often have this crossroad where we have the fear-driven thought and consequence and the courageous thought and consequence. For instance, you're walking down the street and you suddenly see this person looks really nice, you want to talk to them. Fear, thought, and consequence. Fear, thought, well, that'll be weird. They won't appreciate me talking to them. I can't possibly do it. Consequence, you don't talk to them. Courage, thought, and consequence. I will take that action. I will speak to that person. Consequence, maybe a new friend, maybe a dating partner, maybe just a nice moment with a smile. Maybe a weird, awkward moment. That's fine too. Because it's not about the consequence. It's about being the sort of person that rises above the fear. It's not about the consequence. It's not about if that person becomes your next best friend. It's about, are you building the ability to show up in spite of fear? Another example. You want to start a new hobby that's totally out of your comfort zone, you've never done before. You want to start dancing classes. Fear, thought, and consequence. Fear, thought, I couldn't possibly do dancing. I've never danced before. It'll be ridiculous. Everyone will make fun of me. Consequence, you don't dance. Courage, thought, and consequence. I'll try dancing. You go to dance classes. Consequence, you start dancing. And again, it doesn't matter, are you a great dancer or not. That's not what it's about. It's, are you training yourself to be the sort of person that's aligned and that's taking courageous actions in spite of fear? Last example. Fear, thought, I can't possibly reach out to that person to work with them, or apply to that job, or have them on the podcast. Courage, thought, I reach out to that person. Consequence, who knows? So many windows of opportunity, so many open doors, and we don't even walk to the door. Imagine you're just standing in a room and you're surrounded by millions of doors. Loads of them are wide open, some are sort of half open, some are closed. Courage is just walk to the doors. Fear is just stay where you are. And now courage in certain direction is going towards certain types of doors, business ones or fitness ones. And you just go and then you approach and you ask, or you get on a call, or you suggest something. And if the door's wide open, they'll just say yes. If it's semi-open, you might need to negotiate, you might need to hop on a few more calls, you might need to write a few messages, you might need to persevere. And if it's totally closed, well, you can bang at it as much as you want and nothing will happen. But I'd say not that many doors are totally closed. Very, very few. Some look very closed and you need to push a bit more and persevere a bit and finally tuck it open. Many are wide open, but we don't even walk. The example of talking to someone on the street, for instance, I speak to almost all the people that I sit next to on the plane or train. And in all the years that I've been doing this, sometimes it's a very casual sort of, are you traveling for business or leisure? 2-minute exchange, little smile done. Absolutely fine, go back, read my book. But I must have met about 50, 100 people that way. Some I became friends with, some clients, some great contacts, some just a really nice conversation. And in all the years I've been doing this, and I've been doing this now for maybe 20 years, I think I can only remember one time where someone was a bit rude or put off or a bit disagreeable, I think. I'm not even sure. In all those years, people smile, open, and you'd be surprised the amount of people who just leap into conversation. I've barely said, are you traveling for work or leisure? And then I get their whole life story. That's what I mean. Door wide open. The person was just waiting for a smile and for me to say hello, and they're off. Some ask a few more questions, and then doors wide open. They talk and we exchange. We have a great, 2-hour, 3-hour conversation. All those doors, they're open. But you need to walk to it, right? If you just stay there in that big room, which is the equivalent of not even looking to your neighbor or saying hi, doesn't work. So, the courage to at least walk to all these doors. Just show up. Just try. What's the worst that can happen? The neighbor sort of smiles back and says 2 words and doesn't speak to you afterwards. That's fine. The person that you reached out to doesn't respond or says no Okay, next. There's so many things that I think we miss out on life because we don't even try. Because we're so afraid of the failure or the rejection, when really failure and rejection doesn't do much. It just tests your perseverance, and it just tests how much things matter to you. And maybe it's a different direction. Maybe you need to do it a bit differently and pivot a bit the way you're doing things. So these were the 3 core ingredients when it comes to perseverance. I guarantee that if you're struggling right now to reach a certain goal or to persevere, or you're feeling a bit discouraged, you need to look at all 3. How's your mindset? Do you believe you have what it takes? Can you work on some of these limiting beliefs? If you don't believe you have what it takes, look for some proof that you do have what it takes and start proving to yourself that you can do it. Do you have the patience? Can you train your patience? Start tracking your actions, tracking your progress, believing and seeing that you are progressing in the right direction. And how's your courage? How have you trained yourself to take action even though you're afraid, even though it's uncertain, even though we don't know what's on the other side? We're all afraid all the time. People often, a few friends of mine sort of said that I was fearless. Not at all. I would say I'm very fearful, but I've trained courage. I've trained it like a muscle. I literally hear my brain go, I can't possibly do that. That's terrifying. I can't do it. And I do it. This is what Mel Robbins calls the 5-second rule, where you give yourself 5 seconds. You think, I'll go and talk to that person. And then you give yourself 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you go and talk to them. Because that prevents you from talking yourself out of it. And that's exactly what I do. So I think, I really could reach out to that amazing person to have them on the podcast. And then before my brain goes, what the heck? They'll say no, da da da. Who am I to do this? I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't actually count. I just then do it. And then I just think of myself as someone who does all these courageous actions. Then that builds an identity. Then you start to see yourself in that light. And then when you're faced with something that's very challenging and out of your comfort zone, you remember, oh, I'm the sort of person that does that, even though it's scary, even though it's uncomfortable. And then you do it because you now see yourself in that light. So courage is really just a habit and a muscle, and it's just a way of training the brain to not let fear overdrive. That's all. And so what do we have? Mindset, patience, courage. And if you apply all 3, guarantee that this will support you to be more persevering in what matters to you, to make progress on your goals and ambitions and direction in your life. And I hope this has helped you. If you have any questions at all, please put it in the comments. I love to read all the comments. This also helps to support the show to grow. So whatever you learned and you feel is useful for you, please also share here below. And I answer any question that I see. I actually love reading questions because it helps me to think on my feet and to look at it from a different perspective. So I get very excited actually by questions. So please comment below if you have any questions. If you're new to the show, my name is Katie Stoddart. I work as a conscious leadership and high performance coach, speaker, and podcaster. Hope you enjoyed today's episode on perseverance. I hope that whatever you're dealing with at the moment, that this will support you to be more persevering and to reach the goals and ambitions and direction that you're aiming for. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, like, comment, and see you in the next episode.